Hey, what's up, Next Level Crew? Welcome back to another episode of What's Your Next, the podcast where we help you navigate the world of franchising and business ownership. And today I'm joined by my lovely wife, Stacy, expert franchise matchmaker. And we're going to be talking about a topic today that isn't discussed a lot, and that is when you go into business, one of the things that's truly important that you have in mind is what is your exit strategy?
Welcome to What's Your Next. This is the go-to podcast for aspiring business owners who want to get to the next level, escape the rat race, and give their middle finger to the corporate 9-to-5. If you want financial freedom, work-life balance, and the business of your dreams, you're in the right place. Dave and Stacy Riska, husband-wife franchising duo, openly share their successes, failures, and lessons learned in franchising, business ownership, and working with your spouse.
Why, when you start that business, what's the end result going to be for you? And as I said, this isn't a topic that is covered a whole lot, but it is really, really crucial in helping determine partially what is your why, which I think is truly one of the most important things as far as matching anybody to a business or a franchise. So Stacy, why is it important for franchise owners to think about their exit strategy early on?
Well, Dave, you brought up the great point, right? It's about your why. You can never start thinking about your exit strategy too early. Candidates come to us all excited to get into the buggy, go through the franchise roadmap, and drive. They just want to rev, but they're never really thinking about the end game. Now think about when you go on a road trip, right? You have to know what your end game is, where you're going. So it's the same thought process in running a business. And by thinking about this, not that you have to do a lot of things ahead of time, but kind of knowing what you think your end game might be, it's going to help you maximize the results when you do get to that point.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So it's interesting how different things, there are different ways that you can exit a business, and they all can lead to very different outcomes. Can you share a story either from our experience or from one of our clients' experience where having an exit strategy or not having one made a big difference?
Absolutely. So let's start with some theory first and share with the audience what the 5 different exit strategies might be, because there are different ways that you could approach it. The most popular one that most people think about is you sell it. You sell it to a third party. And this would be your ultimate end game. So that's one strategy. But a second strategy is succession planning. A lot of people get into business because they want legacy. They want it to be family owned, run, operated. And so maybe part of that legacy is to pass it on to a family member. So that's something to think about. A third strategy might be to sell it to an employee. Maybe you have somebody who's been with you all the way, really has an interest in the business, has expressed maybe wanting to own it. And so that might be a strategy where you do an earn out, or possibly they buy it from you as an exit strategy. A fourth one to think about might be a franchisor buyback, because most people don't realize that in most franchise agreements, the franchise has usually a first right of refusal. When you go to sell, they could possibly buy it back from you. So that is an option that you'll want to discuss with your franchise and know what's in your franchise agreement. And then the fifth one, which is the least popular, is where you just close the doors, walk away. That's one that we don't want you to have to go through. So thus why to think about your exit strategy. So then looping it back to some examples, I have a good one and a bad one. All right, so let's start with the good one. We had somebody who reached out to us. We had placed them into a franchise. They were doing really well, growing it. And then 2.5 years in, life changed. And it happens to a lot of us. They had to move and they were going across the country. They realized that they had to exit their business. So they reached out to us kind of wondering what they should do. And we consulted with them, laid out the different options to consider. And because they weren't in immediate dire needs to like leave tomorrow, we helped them think about the things that they needed to get in place, ensuring their financials were optimal, making sure they were doing everything they could to keep and retain the customer base, and talking to an accountant and the franchisor, getting all those administrative pieces in place. So through the next 6 months, they were able to optimize and they sold for a very nice, lucrative profit. On the other side, I'm thinking about somebody who reached out to us just a few days ago. You could hear the panic in their voice. And they were reaching out to us to see if we could possibly help them sell their franchise. They had been in it about 2.5 years, but it wasn't doing well. And it was really more an ownership issue. They had really just not put in the time, the effort, the marketing to grow the business. So 2.5 years in, they realized that they had a dud. We are not business brokers, so we don't sell businesses. We don't help people sell businesses, but we can do some consulting to help people get an optimal outcome. So in this case, we consulted with the person, gave them some advice, and ultimately their end game is that they're just going to be ending up walking away from the business because there's really not a lot there to sell. So I encourage them just to maybe work out an amenable termination with the franchisor, because understand you're likely signing a 5 to 10 year agreement. And if you don't work it out with your franchisor, they're going to hold you accountable.
Understandable.
A lot to think about.
Sure, yeah. So thank you for sharing the different ways of exiting a business. Before we move on, though, please, if you like our content, like, subscribe, thumbs up, all those great things. We certainly appreciate it. It helps us want to bring you more content like this. So, Stacy, for someone who's just starting their franchise and maybe isn't thinking about these things yet, what should they be doing now to prepare for the future?
I'm doing a lot of talking here. Let's throw it back to you because, as most of our audience knows, we own a franchise. And so we know 19 years ago, Dave, when we invested in ours, were you thinking about the exit strategy?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was your end game? And talk about that.
Well, our end game was to ultimately try to transfer this to one of our two sons. They grew up, decided that it wasn't for them. They both got very lucrative jobs in very rapidly growing industries. They seem super happy. And, there comes a time to exit, and that plan just didn't work out.
Right. And we've also had experience in selling a business from scratch. And so was that a happy ending?
Well, again, a happy ending. We did have an exit strategy.
We did.
We said after 10 years, we were going to explore either merging this or selling the business. And sure enough, after 10 years, we exited and sold that business and, made a decent profit from it. So we did have our exit strategies in place for both of these businesses with very different outcomes, right? All right, so moving on. Now, are there any mistakes you see that franchise owners make when it comes to exiting their business?
Yeah, unfortunately there are. And usually it's because they're waiting too long. They're not planning early enough and thinking about their exit strategy. Something happens, like something in life happens or something in the business happens, and they haven't thought about their exit strategy. So they're rushed. They're making emotional decisions, not logical decisions. And many times they don't have their back office in place. Their financials are a mess. They don't have the marketing documented. When somebody comes in wanting to buy a business, they are buying the assets and a proven system. So you need to take the time up front to make sure you have all of that in place. And I would also say, make sure that you talk to professionals out there. Talk to your franchisor because they will be involved in the sale of your business. Talk to an accountant because the structuring of the deal is very important. Talk to a business broker to understand the valuation because businesses usually sell for a multiple of sales and or profit. So you really need to know your numbers and plan ahead.
Well, that's all great info. So thank you for providing all that great info there. So Stacy, before we wrap up, what would you say to someone who's thinking about buying a franchise right now but hasn't thought about their end game yet?
it's never too early to start. Reach out to us. We're always here to serve and support you. But hopefully this session of today's What's Your Next gave you some insights and things to think about, some tactical, actionable tips that you can take. So I think it's just think about the end game. What might your next be? What might your exit strategy be? And then think about what you need to put in place today to achieve it.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. If you have any comments on this topic, you've been through this before, you've exited a business, or if you're somebody who maybe is, has acquired a business recently and you did have an exit strategy, how about you share that with other people? That would be great. So this is it for today's episode of What's Your Next. We'll catch you on the next episode soon. Take care.
Bye.